Hezekiah. He was truly a great king. But to fully understand how great he was, you have to realize the circumstances that was all around him. First of all, he had a horrible father. One of the worst two kings of all of the history of Judah. And on top of that, he had a broken down nation. I mean, it had been so great under his great-grandfather. But now anyone who wanted anything just came and got it. It was broken down. And on top of that, Assyria, the world power, they had watched this nation move slowly across the landscape for several generations. Now during his time, they're right there. They're at his doorstep. Judah is next. And all of their gold and silver has already been sent to them. They have no army. They have no way to defend themselves. And then you have the judgment of God. God is not pleased with them. His father closed the temple. He used actual instruments of the temple to be in the altar of his false god. And then he was involved in child sacrifice. God's anger was against Judah at this point. That's the situation. That's when Hezekiah becomes king. Well, he had certain things going for him. The main thing going for him was his mother. Abijah was her name. It's the only first time in Scripture where I have some indication that they may have actually used nicknames, because it looks like she was called Abby, or A-B-I, that's how we would say it. But Abijah was his mother. Now Abijah comes from a family of godly people. Her father was Zechariah. Zechariah was the personal counselor for the great king Uriah. His daughter married Hezekiah's father, that awful king. She more or less protected him. She was a godly woman, educated him, but protected him. Ahaz was involved in child sacrifice, which means his children, which means Hezekiah could have been sacrificed, but because of her, kept him from being so. Also educated him. She was probably the reason why he became a great king. But he also had a counselor who had been around for a while, one that was a cousin, or a second cousin, and that is Isaiah. Isaiah was a person that was his friend and his counselor. But there are a lot of negatives. First of all, Ahaz had been king, and Hezekiah had been co-king for him for 14 years. When the story says that Hezekiah had been king for 29 years, it didn't include the 14 years that he had been a co-king since he was 11 years old. And during that time, he had watched the destruction of Israel, all of the refugees coming down from the north, telling about what happened. He had watched Assyria dominate. He had watched his kingdom sacked, his brothers killed. Well, what do we learn from Hezekiah? He was truly one of the great kings of Judah, probably the greatest. This is what we learn. And I will read it. Don't focus on how bad things are. We are not to focus on how bad things are around us. If anyone could do that, Hezekiah could. We're not to focus on how bad things are around us. No, instead we are to focus on why God put us in the middle of it. If everything's bad, then why am I here? Does God have a purpose? Hezekiah points out that possibly so. He was the right man for that job. He was one that could be put right in the middle of it. And literally, he was in the middle. I said there were two worst kings. His father was one of the two worst kings. His son was the other one. Manasseh was the other one. Hezekiah was in the middle of the two worst kings of Judah. We have a lot that we can learn from this great king. We're going to be with him for 3 weeks. This week and 2 more weeks. We have 3 stories that deal with this man. Next week we'll get into the battle with Sennacherib and talk a little bit more about Syria. So come back next week when we continue on with this series on Hezekiah, on Story Insights, on the story of the week. We'll see you next week.